were kind of an obvious. I was expecting that.
Yeah.
But there are people that, in fairness to you and I, a couple of years ago, we didn't know each other, and it's only through networking that we've discovered each other. And there's an audience in the UK who's probably not heard of you before, but now all of a sudden, in a sense, you have a following. And exciting to be part of that.
Yeah, so am I. And I think when I started out, even with the podcast show, I was interviewing people I knew, people I've engaged with. And then I started realizing that some of the people I did know lived internationally, and I just messaged them and said, well, hey, I know you do. I remember the first person that was really international. She's a public speaker, and she was all the way from Australia, New Zealand. And I was like, hey, well, come chat to us. And she was very gracious to sort of come chat to us about public speaking and presenting and being on camera. And she did, and it was. Then I was like, if I can speak to people in New Zealand, I can speak to people anywhere. And then I just started going on online and messaging people and kind of connecting with them. So yeah, it's and I think probably today I've spoken to probably about 20 different international people from international areas, which is so awesome to be able to connect and hear what people are doing from an international space, and what they're doing differently.
Yeah, I agree. I had the honor of meeting with Tom Ziglar in December.
Wow.
So I went to the States in December. I went to see some American football and some basketball. But I crowbarred in a visit to Dallas and met up with Bob Tiede, Bob Bodine, Tom Ziglar, and a guy called Carl Height.
Yeah.
And it just was, 5 years ago, I would never have thought I could share company with him, go out for lunch and dinner. And, to me, that was a different world. One of the things I was going to email you about after the day is there's a group of speakers that get together internationally. It's run by a guy called Bill Bishop, who's an American guy who speaks on AI and the future of various things.
Yeah.
But he calls it the 10% Speakers Club. It's not really a club. It's not a network. It's just a group of speakers. The idea being, if we can refer each other work, then 10% of the revenue goes to the person that did the referring. And we're having like a Zoom call once a month, and some of the stuff that comes up is just brilliant. And because you're in a room with people that are trying to do some of the stuff that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I'll send you some information. You can think if you want to participate in some of the sessions, because the power of who, as Bob Bodine calls it, is amazing. And
yeah, absolutely.
I treasure having you in my network. And
thank you. I appreciate that. I just want to.
I promise you, next time I come to South Africa, we will meet up. Yeah, go for it. If you need to go somewhere.
I do want to add some lights to the situation.
Yeah.
Just so we make, and of course I'm going live on Twitter, not Twitter, TikTok.
Are you? Okay.
So
I haven't tried TikTok.
Apparently going live is really good. So welcome everybody. I am joining Bob Hayward on his show today, and we're going to be speaking about the future of employees need wings. So hang in there, and if you want to find out more, we're going to be chatting shortly. So thanks, Bob. I'm excited to be here and share some ideas and some information.
No, I'm looking forward to it. It's such a key topic at the moment. Well, I suppose, the skills of the future has forever been a topic, because there always was a future.
Yeah.
And I guess, even when we were using whale blubber for fuel, there was still people worried about what the future will bring.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it is a fascinating stage of life we're at. And I was quite fascinated by your choice of topic for the webinar. Because so many people are talking about the future being related to AI, and you chose the future of work is human. I don't want to steal your webinar because we're 20 minutes away from starting that.
Well, you know what I find interesting, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because the usual the brain's way of dealing, and this, it's just for the audience's sake, whoever's listening in right now, the brain's way of wanting to keep us safe is to protect us, right? It's the fight, flight, fear, freeze kind of sort of immediate response that we have. So instinctively, when conversations about AI and ChatGPT and all of this stuff comes in, people immediately go into that. So what does that mean about humans? What does that mean about humans? And so my question is like, like that's going to happen. ChatGPT is going to happen in any case. AI is not going to slow down or go away. The question is how, like, what am I doing? Like, how is this affecting me, and how am I evolving around AI? And how is AI supporting me in doing what I do? And I mean, I can proudly say that I'm already using ChatGPT to help me summarize information, right? Like you make all these notes around what the client's speaking about, and I'm going, okay, now I've got to create a summary out of this, and I put it into ChatGPT. I'm like, give me a summary. It does it in seconds. And then I take that and I kind of work through it, and I'm like, okay, cool. This is relevant. This is not relevant. This is relevant. So it's, for me, it's more of a case of like, how am I working with AI rather than thinking, how's AI going to replace me? And just be more effective, because we can actually use it in a way that actually makes us more productive. Someone spoke about it the other day, that what we're not realizing about AI specifically is it's evolving at that rate, so that as humans we can get AI to do AI stuff, and stuff that isn't menial and meaningless, so that as humans we have more time to connect with each other. And I was like, that's exactly the point. Like if we can have AI like typing up this entire conversation, no one out, like you and I can rather have a conversation while AI is typing up this conversation. And by the time we're done having our conversation, someone's typed it up, we put it in, and you can share it as a blog post or whatever, So it's how you use it and how you frame what it is you're doing.
It is fascinating, because when we started the webinar series, which was at the beginning of the original lockdown on COVID, just to run 5 weekly webinars, just 5, just to help out.
Yeah.
I was paying somebody to transcribe the webinar so I could get blogs or articles or follow-up material out of it.
Yeah.
Which is, when you think about it now, with something like chat, that's not needed anymore. So in the short space of time that we've been working together on a webinar series, the world's moved.
Yeah.
And it went through a transition, because there was a mechanism to upload the video onto YouTube, and that would give you a transcription, and then Zoom started to give you a transcription, and now you've got multiple ways of doing it. But it is stunning. So typically before the webinar starts, Kevin, we think about some questions that we might pose in a typical Q&A. So are you thinking of running a presentation for 40 or 50 minutes and then running an official Q&A, or how are you planning to run this session?
Yeah, so I'm going to try and leave some time for 4 people to have a bit of a Q&A. So I'm going to try and make it about 45 minutes so that we can have a bit of Q&A and questions and answers. But essentially, if we don't, I'm going to be leaving everyone with a nice tool as well that they can actually go and check out. That they can actually go and do their self-assessment on them.
All right. So what would you, I can ask you a couple of questions. So are there any particular questions at the end that you'd like me to ask you?
I think maybe the question around what we just spoke about, why am I focused on the evolution of human needs and not so much the AI? Because I think what we just spoke about now, and the consideration that AI in itself we need to think about it on how we could actually use it so that it benefits us. And that we evolve in areas that are human to us and are easy for us to get to, rather than coming from a space of lack or fear or something that's not working, but rather from a space of, no, I can actually evolve as well, and I can also start creating that critical thinking process for how do I evolve to be. And I think that's the challenge that people are having, right? We kind of go, well, what is it that we need for the future? And if some of these 5 primary skills, if you're not creative, if you're not critically thinking through, how to be the best of the best, then that's where the big lack stands in, and I think that's what people need to start recognizing is. We're in an era where if you're not better than your competitor and you're not doing even more than they are, and you're not actively wanting to grow and say, how do I become part of this growth for this industry or my competitor? What I find is, because I'm doing what I do, I have a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of peers and people in my environment that are wanting to do or collaborate with what I'm doing. Because they're simply not doing what I'm doing, which is great, and I appreciate that they are. Because with the co-creation, I mean, we're currently working on an international project with a very large law firm, and two of the projects or programs that we're running with now is called Owning Your Career and Owning Your Leadership. So really getting people to understand, how are you actively involved with your career? And as a leader, how are you actively helping your employees, push forward and be more engaged and driven and motivated to do better, right? Because the organizations of the future are not the guys sitting back and chilling out and letting things happen and evolving. They are the organizations taking action, making it happen. Organizations like you and I putting content together like this for people and going, well, no, there's stuff that you need to know. There's stuff that we can grow. There's stuff that we need to share and co-collaborate in, because that is the future of work. And that's why I coined this, the future of work is human, because without you and I doing this, who knows what collaboration could come from this? And
sure.
you just mentioned, the speaker group that you speak of. It's in that co-collaboration and creation where even something better comes out of the actual collaboration. And that's why the future of work is human, because we need the social intelligence to be able to do that. We can't do without it.
No, it is fascinating. When I went to the States in December, one of the guys I met up with is a guy called Bob Bodine, and he runs a very successful executive search company. Basically, if you work in American sports, if you're a general manager or the head coach of a American football team or basketball team, then he's the guy who's going to find you your next job. So he's in that kind of space. And he's written a couple of really good books. One of them is called The Power of Who.
Yeah.
And in it, he basically says, we kind of got networking wrong. If we actually really treated it with the respect it deserves, then everybody we want to know, actually, we already know somebody that knows them. And we're just not leveraging the shared knowledge of our network. And if our network and our knowledge is our wealth,
yeah,
nobody can take it away from us. So if we leverage our knowledge and our network, we're far more likely to generate wealth, not just for us, but for others. And the power of who is this amazing, simple concept, to make it easy, that there's so much inside each and every one of us. And if we can, including somebody else's network, everyone's got their own black book of connections, and we just don't know who knows who. And that's part of the voyage of discovery, I think, is it's so much fun listening to people we respect who can take us mentally, knowledge-wise, into places that we wouldn't necessarily have thought of and co-design something, and also take us into a network of other people that we wouldn't naturally have thought of.
Yeah.
And I remember Thomas Power years ago talking about the connections. He created Ecademy, which was the precursor of LinkedIn. I was like, way back before LinkedIn, if anybody can remember that far back, the thought that actually we're probably only 6 people away from anybody else in the world was just like mind-bending. Now it's probably less than that.
Yeah.
So I think the knowledge that we can access and the code design you can access, if we can spend more time being human, as you said, it could be incredibly powerful, as we would leverage that network and the knowledge, I think, far more effectively.
But I mean, to that point, Bob, I think, and it's just something I've realized in the last 6 months is because people know that, LinkedIn is a place to kind of go now and share information and invariably, I still find that when I'm actively engaged in conversation and I'm like being human to human and kind of going, hey, who are you? What do you do? Let's talk. When I'm doing that, I have far more the connectivity with that person and connection with them than just sending them a random email or sending them a random, conversation link or something. When you actually go, we always say that we're connected, and yeah, we're connected on all these devices and all these platforms. But how many times have you spoken to the person that you're connected to? Like what effort do you put in? And I think that's when you backtrack, you kind of go and you look at today's conversation as well, you're kind of going, that's where social intelligence really fits in, is like, how do I actually connect to the human on the other side of the screen instead of just, sending them a random connection link or a random message, but rather say to them, cool, let's even if it's a 10-minute conversation, like just tell me who you are, I'll tell you who I am, and hey, if I can help you benefit, cool. If you can help me benefit, cool. Then at least I've met you and you're in the back of my mind, and it's available. But until we don't take that kind of stance and take that approach, I think we're doing ourselves a huge disservice by being lax and lazy and complacent and using video as an excuse that I can't, I'm not video ready. It's like, well, then you're not ready for life. Then go back to your bedroom, get dressed, like comb your hair, wash your face, and get back to this and put the screen on. Like, like enough with the I'm not camera ready nonsense already. Like, get ready for camera. We're not living in the dark ages. And I think people really need to get up and like show up for yourself. And I mean, one of the things that I was watching, I must share this with you, where someone in South Africa was in a very Afrikaans, it's actually quite funny when you understand the language. Pure Afrikaans people have a very strong kind of way of, like, the language is very strong and the dialect is very like blunt. But one of the things she shares is, why not go and put your makeup on and comb your hair, and why not just stop worrying about pointing a finger and looking, I look a bit shiny today and I'm so gray. And the problem is you're looking more at yourself in the screen than you're there to actually share information. And then I was like, that's exactly what people struggle with. They're so self-critical. and so caught up with, how they look or how they will be perceived or whatever, that they forget that no, actually, you might have some unbelievable information that someone could learn something from. So, enough with the self-criticism and the self-negative talk. Why don't you just show up for yourself and put it out there and make a difference to someone's life? And then she rightfully said, I want to hear you. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from that person who's avoiding putting their face on that camera. And I'm like, I think that's brilliant, because again, it, as much as AI has this idea of separation, when you get past the camera and the thing and the self-talk and all of that, you kind of connect. You're connecting, because then you're engaged with people. And I think that's the important part of it.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think with technology that we have today, we are never more connected, and yet sometimes never more alone.
Yeah.
And despite all our ability to join the dots up from a technology point of view, that's blah blah unless there's something human at its core. Absolutely right. To be in a relationship with someone is completely different than being connected with someone.
Absolutely.
I'm old enough to remember punching holes in a card where they, either I'm punching out a 0 or I'm punching out a 1. And, I sit in front of a Zoom screen or look at a PowerPoint or, chat AI and go, just how many noughts and zeros and ones somebody must have punched out. Because, in my lifetime, we have seen such an acceleration of things. But I can remember my maths teacher, who was getting us to punch the cards and program these early computers, saying, in your lifetime, you won't be doing any work. The computers will do it all for you. I was like, I have never felt that's further from the truth than I do today in 2023.
Yeah.
It is just certainly not going to happen in my lifetime, and I'm not sure, because we need that human element that you're going to be talking about, that it's ever going to happen in the way that my maths teacher foresaw it so many decades ago.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put up the usual 11 o'clock slide.
Sure.
Kevin, so that we'll open the call now. If that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's perfect.
We'll start the webinar. Find the
recording in progress.
Good. Found the record button. That was good. Well, welcome to the Thoughts on Thursday webinar. The second one of 2023. So it's wonderful to see people joining, and we will be making a start in a couple of minutes. Kevin and I have already been chatting because Kevin's live on which platform? Are we also live on, Kevin?
We're also live on YouTube. So if you go and check under the lunchtime series, you'll find us there under YouTube.
Wow.
As well as TikTok. Yeah, actually TikTok as well. So, and you can go and just type in Kevin Brits _LBD to find us there.
We're multitasking. I can't believe it. How did we manage to do this? Oh, well, I'm fascinated to meet up with Kevin again. Kevin spoke very well for us, must be at least a year ago, and was so popular with our audience that they voted him into the top 10 of our speakers over the last 3 years. So we begged him, kicking and screaming, to come back and talk to us again. So I'm very excited that we have that opportunity. So for those of you that don't know Kevin, I'll give you a brief introduction in a moment, and then we'll give him the floor. But we'll start.
Guys, so we're going to be chatting about the future of employees will need wings to thrive. So stick around, because it's going to be an interesting conversation.
We can't actually tell what time it is wherever in the world, but that would be a good thing to get the chat going. What time is it wherever you are? That would tell us a bit about your geography. The chat should be working. So TikTok is banned and blocked in Hong Kong, China. Yeah. Well, I think if some of the Americans have their way, it will get banned in America. So watch out. It is now 11 o'clock. So do make sure you've reprogrammed your chat settings. I have made the chat available to everybody. You should be able to chat with everybody, but just check the settings on your side. So it's my honor and privilege to introduce you to Kevin. Kevin runs a very successful leadership development organization. He's a major change practitioner, works across the world on upskilling leaders and cultures and working on motivation. And in this webinar, we're going to talk about the primary skills that we all require to mold into the future, because guess what? The future is coming whether we like it or not. And being able to skill our teams and motivate our teams as well as ourselves has probably been no more important than it is today. So I will stop the screen share and leave the floor to Kevin.
Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for the introduction and thanks for the opportunity. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here. So so just to give you some background on this, as Bob was saying, my company is called Leadership by Design, and I specialize really in human behavior. It's always been human behavior. I've always been passionate about why humans behave the way they do, and what makes people tick and what drives people. What is the fascination with the underlying core driver for why people do what they do. I also team business performance coach, certified in neurolinguistics therapy, in leadership, as well as in the last 2 years, the privilege to be one of the assessors on the MIT Sloan's Neuroscience for Business and Leadership. So it really gives, us I have a really beautiful overview of not only understanding human behavior on the level of why people do what they do and how do we language that, but also how your brain gets impacted by the natural processes and habits. And literally one of the points that we learn about is food, right? So how food can actually improve your leadership skill or take away from your leadership. But yeah, so all in all, certified around a lot of areas to do with human behavior. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is why the future of work is a human experience. And we as humans really need to tap into how do we evolve and how do we upskill ourselves to evolve with the AI. So we all know about ChatGPT and everyone's slightly freaked out about it. But essentially, in the last couple of years, we can look at the law of polarity, and everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has a pair, it's opposites, it's like, it's unlike, it's the same, it's opposites, identical in nature, but different in degree. And the reason why I bring this up, because, we've had such opposing areas of force happening in the last couple of years post-COVID. And what this has done in itself is, like the remote working that's happened, the future of work, and what does that mean? Like, how do we know what the future of work looks like? Is everything still moving online or mostly moving online? We have areas in business like the big resignation and silent resignation and the quiet quitting, for example. We have outdated HR policies. Employers are starting to value stuff that, that's why a lot of immigrations, emigrations happening around the world is because people realize they don't actually have to be in an office. So, as long as I'm doing my job, I value rather, walking on the beach every night than having to be in a city, part of these contrasts of whether, that we see in the world right now is being connected but being disconnected. And it's become a real phenomenon where the human race has found itself in working environments. So one of the things that we know is because of this, it's in the last couple of years, it's created a lot of uncertainty, right? And uncertainty, we know that when we feel like things are uncertain, part of the uncertainty for us then creates weird behavior, because when things are uncertain, we start acting out, right? So part of the uncertainty could be the quiet quitting. Part of the uncertainty could be, I'm not feeling, I'm not valued in this company. Part of the uncertainty is, well, things have changed for me. So I want to work in a hybrid way, and I don't want to be in an office. So as a human element, as a human key component, which all humans have, is there's a lot of uncertainty around a lot of things for us right now. And it's important to be able to consider this for how we move to the future of work. So according to the World Economic Forum, and I found this really interesting, was the Great Resignation is not over. A fifth of the workers plan to quit in 2022. And that was about a year ago that stat was out. But also in the next decade, old jobs will be replaced by new jobs. 1 billion jobs will change in the next 10 years. And if 1 billion jobs will be changing in the next 10 years, as a human, as a business owner, as an employee, how am I asking? What questions am I asking about what does that mean? And where, what does that mean for me as a person? And what does that mean for me as a business owner or an employee? Another wonderful stat is, what the World Economic Forum speaks to is 71% of the world's wants financial reward, right? And the reasons why is because we want to be paid better. 69% of want to be fulfilled in their work environment, right? Long gone are the days where people are just going to work for the sake of having a salary. People, and we know this with, the Gen Z and Gen Y and all the Gen Zs, all the names that are given to them. We know that, people will, they'll work for a year at a place and kind of go, well, this, just doesn't really feel good anymore. I want to work somewhere else, right? So as a requirement, we also have to consider people want to be fulfilled in being where they are. And if they're not, they'll leave. And the last one is people truly want to be themselves, seeking to belong, right? And this is such an important factor to really consider as an employer and a business owner is, do my employees feel like they belong somewhere, right? And we're going to speak to why this is a little bit later on. So I just want to get my slides right here. So one of the insights that we look at is the top 4 things every senior leader should take note of as the new year approaches. And this was taken from Forbes.com. And the brand purpose alone is no longer enough. And those 4 reasons, and some of those reasons are at least, is we can't simply rely on the brand purpose for it being that's why people will stay with the brand. Make human-led experiences a thing, right? Human-led experiences. And this literally means that whatever decision you're making, however you're approaching the next program that you're putting into place, the next system you're putting into place, the next decision or product that you're actually bringing to an organization, how do you bring human elements to that? Because making it a human-led experience, people will buy into it because of an emotional connection to it. We have to start considering how this affects our audience and our lives from an emotional perspective. We also empower employees with insights that improve their ability to make better business decisions. And someone who works in leadership, one of the coined phrases I've coined already is, what is leadership? Leadership is someone who creates leaders. That's what leadership is, right? And the more leaders you have in your business, the easier it is for your business to improve, and it's easier for your business to function based on the fact that you've taken the time, you've made it part of the movement, part of the culture, part of the DNA of your business, that you have a leader as a sales director, you have leaders as marketers, you have leaders as accountants, and there's leadership happening all around you. And with that, you have a bunch of leaders that you can create the vision for, and it becomes a human-led experience, right? And lastly, we're going to flip Maslow's hierarchy on its head, because what we want to look at is the 6 human needs. And when we flip it on its head, we understand that we're going from self-actualization, esteem, love and connection, safety needs, and physical needs. But when we look at that, the 6 human needs that we are talking about, guys, is And these are things we can't get away from, right? The 6 human needs are there because the very first one comes up as certainty. When you don't have certainty in your world, you'll act out because of it, right? Certainty gives us assurance that we can avoid pain and gain pleasure. It also creates safety and security. So when I don't feel safe in my environment, so if I don't feel like I'm part of this, the growth of this organization, I will act out. If you want to find out why people are quietly quitting, go and check. Do you know what human need is being fed? Is any of their human needs being fed, for that matter? Do I actively create stimuli around variety or the uncertainty? And variety in itself creates the unknown, it's change, it's new stimuli, it's adventure, right? And absolutely, if people are going, yeah, so I run a law firm, or I run, a construction business, how much variety can we have here? And that's the point is there's 5 primary skills that we're going to look at that really, the future of organizations need these 5 primary skills to be able to upskill and to be better at what they're doing. Another one that we look up is significance. Feeling unique, feeling valued, feeling important, special and needed and independent, right? For me as a speaker, I put work together like this because I in itself I get significance from being able to speak to you guys. I've done so much research on this content that you're hearing today that I get something from it, because I believe that, I feel valued, that I can share this information with you, and maybe it changes one director, maybe it changes one organization's viewpoint on how they do their business. But that in itself gives me significance. And as humans, we need significance. When you're doing well, people want to know why you're doing well, right? And if you see someone doing well, congratulate them and say, you know what, thank you for doing this. This is something I practice with my personal assistant, because we get so busy and so caught up, and there's days that I think I really need to just recognize that without her, I struggle. So then I'll literally message her randomly in the afternoon or at night and say, Lauren, I just want you to know that today wouldn't have been possible without you. Thank you for just being there and making it happen and flow and easy. Connection and love, guys, we can't go without connection. We were just speaking about it earlier today. Connecting. There's the saying that your net worth is equal to your network, right? And we know this as factual already, or there's already evidence to prove that. Take the top 5 people that are on your WhatsApp list and see, do these people fan your flames, or do they douse your fire? And if they're not fanning your flames, delete their number, right? Based on the fact that we need connection, we need love, we need people who are close to us, who we really build a really strong connection with, because those people become the foundation of us being strong and being alive and really making stuff happen. And I just see my nephews watching me on TikTok. Hello, Gareth. Thank you for joining me. And guys, the last one, growth and contribution. Growth in itself, Tony Robbins always refers to, if you're not growing, then you're dying, right? And if I know that in my needs, in my human needs, if I know that I'm actually growing and I'm constantly growing, so if that means you're learning a new skill, you're doing a new task, you're taking on a new presentation, and part of that is expansion and capacity and the capability of understanding more, right? As a human, the more we do this and the more we feed the growth, essentially, the more we feel like we come alive, right? And you'll very often find that in an environment where you have a mindset where people are not comfortable, where people are not actually, they don't want to come to work, or they start missing days. And if you go and check those human needs, you'll probably find that something that's very important to them is not being met. So your human needs become a wonderful barometer, a measurement stick for you to be able to go am I meeting my criteria for what I want for my life? Is this in line with what I want? You know, contribution is a sense of service and focus on helping, giving, and supporting others. You know, my contribution, I feel that when I'm doing executive coaching and I see people taking action and making a massive difference to people's lives, and you know, I just tweak and show and guide and probe and question, and then a couple of weeks later, this person's thriving, and you kind of go, that's the point. I'm contributing to that degree, and that makes me come alive. It makes me come alive because then I feel like I'm contributing. So the 6 human needs, guys, and right at the end, if you stay for the end, I'm going to give you a nice website that you can go, that we've just developed and created, that you can go click on and go and answer a few questions. It's going to take you about a half an hour, but you can actually find out how to measure your own 6 human needs and what is your highest human need. Now, what we know about human intelligence, right? So is what we know that essentially we have all these EQs, IQs, PQs, FQs, NQs, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but what we want to speak today is really about understanding your EQ, and why human behavior in itself is such an important aspect, and soft skills is such an important aspect of where the future of work is going. So if we look at the 6 human needs, we want to consider, how do we take those 6 human needs and work them into what the future of work looks like, right? We're not going to have time for breakout rooms today, but essentially, when we look at these, and I've just gone through these guys, so but I'll share these slides with you, and you can find out more about this information. But what I want to share with you is, I'm going back and forth here. Sorry, guys. So how do we solve this? So how do we take what we know about the human needs? How do we take what we know about, you know, what the World Economic Forum is, and some of those things that are actually playing a part of you know, the quiet quitting, why people need fulfillment, what those stats are really showing us, what the World Economic Forum is wanting to get us to understand is the future employee will need wings to thrive. And when we speak about the wings, is the first thing we need to know is general knowledge is in organization is common practice. This is what we think, right? But essentially, general knowledge is not common practice, because a lot of the time people say, you know, well, you know, I've heard this before. I know all about it. And the fact of the matter is, general knowledge is just general knowledge. General knowledge is only important when it is being practiced. So stuff, for example, time management. Do we time manage well? No, well, we know about it. It's general knowledge. We know we're supposed to. Conflict management. Yes, no, we know all about it. It's general knowledge, right? Diversity and inclusion. That the D&I is a wonderful example, because it's being thrown around so much. But yet, if you ask anyone, what exactly does that mean? Nobody can tell you, right? Active listening, health and wellness, self-development. These are all common practices that we know about. It's stuff that we're already aware about. And we know that these things need to happen. The question is, how actively are you involved in taking action on that general knowledge? How much action do you put into your mental health, into your general health, into time management, into having better conflict conversations? Because the fact of the matter is, general knowledge is not common practice. It's just general knowledge, right? And that's the challenge that I have for people today is, with the research that's been done, one of the professors that I'm going to share with you today, his name is Walter van der Velde, and you can YouTube him. He's on YouTube, and he does a TED talk around the work and industry neutral growth skills. And what he did was, he's a professor in Belgium, and in creativity and innovation. And he speaks about the deep work industry specific skills, and he speaks about human specific skills. And when we look at the deep specific skills, the hard skills, is we go down on the cross section of a human being, right? So he points at that going down on that cross section of humans is showing, yes, that is your hard skill. So for you to be able to do this job as an accountant, you have to know the numbers. You be an accountant. You have to study that. There's hard skills that's necessary, but and they're quite obvious, right? The second part is he looks at the cross section and says, what are the work and industry neutral skills that we need? And these also refer to the soft skills, behavioral skills, but these skills are independent from work. They are not just a work-related skill. These are skills that you can use in a work environment and a personal environment. And that's what's important about knowing why the future of work is human, right? Because these are the skills that you can work in any environment with. These are the skills that everyone should know. And these are the skills that everyone should cultivate. So if we have a look at this, the acronym in itself is WINGS, and that's the work industry neutral growth skills, and that's where he gets wings from. And essentially, we want to know, these are the skills that are less affected by the ever-changing. So when we cultivate these skills, we can go from this environment to that environment, to change jobs, to changing relationships. And these skills will still remain an intrinsic core primary skill that you will need for the future of work. But he went and did an interesting thing, because he went and did a whole bunch of research. And with him doing research, I went and did research, and I was like, yeah, this is really starting to prove the commonalities. And some of the resources he used was the World Economic Forum. He used LinkedIn Learning. He also used the Future Work Skills, Forbes.com. There's a whole bunch of publications that he went and looked at and said, let's look at all these leadership skills and all these skills that the future of work needs. And let's see if we're starting to see some kind of pattern, right? And he went on the premise of saying, where else do we find fixed commonalities? And if you find this fixed commonalities in human behavior, for example, so what we know about humans is thought, state, and behavior are really wonderful commonalities that we have as humans to create behavior. So when we are thinking a certain thing, it elicits a certain thought, or a certain state at least, and that state in itself drives behavior, and vice versa. So it's core fundamentals that we know that we have around how humans function. Another area that we looked at is, for example, the common colors that we have. So red, I think it's red, yellow, and blue. And when we look at red, yellow, and blue as the common colors that we have in the world, I'm suddenly doubting myself if it's red, yellow, and blue. But the commonalities of the root colors are red, yellow, and blue, right? And with that, you can create any other color that you can think of, right? And the last one he uses is the commonalities we find in taste. So there's even taste commonalities where in the front of your mouth, on your tongue, you'll taste sweet things. On the sides of your tongues, you'll taste sour things. On the brim or the front of your tongue, you'll taste salty things. And right at the back, you'll taste bitter things. And overall in your mouth, you'll actually taste umami. But again, common root fundamentals of areas that he found that humans function with. So the question was, can we find the commonalities of human behavior to make human behavior and to understand if there are commonalities in human behavior? And what would those be if we actually started looking at it? And the question is, yes, we do. We do have 5 primary skills for the future of employees. And those 5 primary skills that we really need to look at is the number one skill that we need in the future of work today as an employee and an employer is creativity. Creativity in itself lends itself to being able to think out of the box. Creativity wants you to think of inspiration, your vision, your ideas, your imagination, how to innovate, right? Creativity is at the core of doing all of that. Critical thinking, right? Sitting down and really thinking and unpacking information to the degree of really understanding all the facets to what that is. And if you combine creativity and critical thinking, you come up with innovation, right? When you move into attention management, long gone are the days where we just have to manage our time. What we need to know is that when we start forgetting about becoming a multitasker, but rather a unitasker, what we are able to do as humans is really hone in onto what it is we're focused on doing right now. There is no way that I could be having this conversation with you and typing a message to Bob on the chat right now. I can't do it because it'll interrupt my thought process, right? You can't do it, and there's many examples. As an NLP practitioner, there's many examples I can show you that people cannot multitask. Ladies, I'm sorry if you think you can, you can't. You can attempt to, but it won't come out well. Self-management, another one. How do you manage self, right? What does your daily routine look like? What does your habit-formed routine look like? What does your eating habits look like? What does your energy levels look like? Do you know how to influence any of that? And do you have the capacity and the ability to manage yourself to that degree? And if you don't, and if this is not a honed-in skill for you, you got to check in with yourself and say, okay, well, I don't have a handle on my eating habits. I don't have a handle on prepping my food the night before because I'm so busy during the day. I don't have time to eat. So I just grab a hamburger because it's easier, right? Quick, fast foods. That's not useful, right? At self-management, in all areas of managing self, from health to wealth, to finances, to careers, to relationships, how well do you do all of that? And can you manage yourself well enough, right? And the last critical skill that he speaks about is social intelligence. Do we have the capacity and the ability to be social beings, right? And what does that mean? Bob and I, a year ago, we didn't know each other. And I, as part of my business and wanting to build a network, is I go out to actively connect with people. And I saw Bob, and I was looking at what he does, and I just messaged him. We had a conversation. He said, well, why don't you come onto the show and let's have a chat. And I'm proud to say that I was one of the top 10 chosen speakers out of Bob's year last year. And that's why he's invited me back to come share some more information with you guys. So thank you for that. I'm really proud of that. But that's essentially what social intelligence is, guys, being able to, how do I put my ego aside for a second and kind of go, how do I literally connect with people? Like, how do I get to know who you are and who I am, and how do we have a conversation where we have the intelligence to be social with each other, so that we are co-collaborating, but also co-creating. And and Bob's also been on my podcast, so the Lunchtime series, where we do this all the time, and we're speaking to people all the time. So being able to, and I would recommend that you go and check that out, guys. It's one of the best podcasts that's ever been had. Bob gives some sound advice on running businesses and how to do it most effectively. So thank you, Bob. But essentially, guys, those are your 5 critical primary skills that we need to look at. So just to wrap that up, what is your creativity? And coming up with ideas, problem solving, driven by curiosity, and connecting to things that you never have connected to before. That's what creativity does, right? Critical thinking is, creativity and critical thinking complement each other, where you can ask, can we get more information? Should we ask for help? Is there a need for today? Does this benefit us? And how well will I respond to this, right? How do you critically think about a topic, a subject, a product, a situation, a conflict? How do you critically think around that and really hone that as a skill? When we look at self-management, do I know who I really am? Makes working towards the goals you want to achieve, that makes people confident, targeted, focused, and relaxed and open to change. Right? Part of being having the ability to self-manage is, how agile are you and adaptable and easy are you? Or are you one of those people that are quite stubborn and stuck in your ways? Because the truth of the matter, for you to be able to be a social intelligent person, you have to self-manage that part of you, so that you're far more agile and able to move from one situation to another. And in itself, that's a leadership quality, right? So self-management it's a really important factor as a critical core primary skill. Social intelligence, connecting, collaborating, people who are good at listening and responding. Guys, listening, for those who haven't heard, and again, general knowledge is not common practice. Listening is an active skill. Listening means that you do not speak, right? So when you're listening, you don't speak, and the other person speaks. And when they're done speaking, you go, okay, so this is what I heard you say. Right? That is active listening, and listening in itself is a very social intelligent component to communication and also social intelligence. Giving feedback, but knowing how to do that effectively. So you don't just offend people, but you are. It's critical feedback, but feedback that is in the aim of growing someone and not just breaking people down. Able to create positive group dynamics. Are you the guy that walks into the room and has always something good to say to the group, or are you the one known for the gossip in the office, right? What does your social intelligence look like, and how is it affecting the outcomes that you have at the end of the day? So the question that moving on from understanding that we have these 5 critical skills, the last one I forgot to mention now is attention management, organizing self, finding your daily flow and rhythm, enhancing your productivity, and enhancing your one activities. Again, guys, flowing your day, finding your daily flow and rhythm. We all have different flows and rhythms, right? A large part of what we know about the human brain is when we get stuff done before 12 o'clock, okay, we tend to make better decisions, and we tend to be far more constructive before we have lunch, right? So the moment we have lunch, we automatically change our body's physical chemistry, and because of that, we tend to make different decisions. So finding what your daily flow and rhythm is. Some people like working really late at night. Some people get up really early. For me, if I really want to, finish work and get things done and out there and make sure that I can present, then I'm doing it really early in the morning, at 6 in the morning, when it's quiet. I'm fresh, my brain's open, and I've just woken up and I feel alive. That's for me a daily flow that works for me, and everybody needs to find their own. Now, lastly, guys, if you are on the webinar, you'll see on the screen, it asks, so with these primary skills connections, creativity, critical thinking, attention management, social intelligence, self-management, where does leadership, how many of those connect to leadership, right? So I'm going to ask that question. Then the next question is, where does complex problem solving, where do those 5 primary skills fit into complex problem solving? So self-management, social intelligence, attention management, critical thinking, creativity, how do they fit into complex problem solving? And then the last one, conflict management. Right? And these and I've chosen these 3 because from the World Economic Forum, these are some of the biggest areas of concern in organizations currently. So how do those 5 primary skills fit into conflict management? And what they show us, and what we know, guys, is what did you learn? What we learned from this is from complex problem solving, you need creativity and critical thinking. It's a core primary skill that with your creativity and critical thinking, you'll be able to solve a very complex problem that you're having. The next one being conflict management. Conflict management, for you to solve that, you need creativity, critical thinking, as well as social intelligence, right? When you have those in the mix, conflict management is a lot easier because, you have to be socially intelligent to be able to do that. But how do you critically think about the areas that need to change or what the conflict is? And how do you creatively solve the actual conflict? That's why you need all 3 critical skills. And then lastly, right, leadership. All of them, guys. As a leader, you need all of them. So I would suggest that if you're an employee, an employer, a business owner, whoever you are out there listening to this today, go out and investigate how do you actively create all these 5 primary skills as a critical skill for you in your environment, because the more you learn all of them and hone them in as your 5 core primary skills, you're going to tackle a large number of things in your organization and in that may come up for you with your organization. And because you have these 5 primary skills, you'll be able to solve far more than you realize. So those, just to wrap it up, guys, the 5 primary skills for the future of employees is creativity, critical thinking, attention management, self-management, social intelligence. And I want to leave you with a comment from George Bernard Shaw. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists to trying to adapt to the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man, right? And the reason why I share this is I challenge you out there today to really become unreasonable with yourself and kind of go, if I have to be the future of work, and part of the challenge that people are not realizing is, let's take, for example, the quiet quitting, right? What we're not realizing is organizations are also looking at who are these individuals that are quietly quitting? Who are these people that are really just there for having a job? And very soon, if you're not one of those people who are unreasonable with yourself and kind of going, this bar that I've set for myself is incredibly low, I actually need to do something about it. And I need to investigate what my human needs are. I need to investigate what my 5 primary skills are and which one is really, really great and which 2 or 3 do I really need to work at? Because if you're not considering all of that from that perspective and that degree, you're probably going to be one of the guys that's going to probably be leaving soon, or soonest at least, because what organizations, and this is, and I'm sure Bob will agree with me, what organizations are starting to recognize is we need people who are innovative, who are thinkers, who are critical thinkers, who are challenging the status quo, who are coming up with new ideas, who are evolving with AI, as much as AI is evolving, but rather using AI as a wonderful tool to press the agenda and move the world forward. Because what we do need is we need more solutions, right? We have enough problems in the world. We need more solutions. And the only way that we come up with those solutions and we get to those solutions is if we put complacency out of the way and get that out of the way and start understanding, what are my human needs? What do I need to feel motivated? Do I need to grow? Do I need variety? Do I need significance? And if it's one of those things, one of those needs that I just need in my world, I can start there, because that will in itself help me motivate to where I want to go and what I want to do. So just to recap, guys, go and consider those 5 critical skills and think of them. They're critical thinking, creativity, attention management, social intelligence, self-management. And then lastly, go and think of your 6 human needs: certainty, variety, significance, love and connection, growth and contribution. And that's where we're going to end today, Bob. I'm a lot earlier than, so we've got time for questions.
Well, that's always a good thing. The Thoughts on Thursday audience is normally full of questions, so that'll be a really good idea to get into that. So maybe, Kevin, if you stop the screen share.
Yes, let me stop.
There
we go.
Or visual response of you. We have a first question in already. Graham asks, Kevin, I'm interested to learn your motivation or starting point for this new way of thinking.
My motivation for it is I'm innately, I've always been passionate for human behavior. And what I was seeing, when COVID did arrive, that was a fantastically unexpected event on the planet. And what it did do is I was lying in bed the one day, flipping through Facebook and seeing how people were losing loved ones, and then seeing how people were losing businesses, and people were going, guys, does anyone know, like, this is what I'm good at, I need, I need a job, this is closed down. All of that started happening. And to me, I was going, well, this is crazy. We've never been in this situation. And if, like, what can I do about it? If I could do anything about it, what would that be? And I started just, putting myself out there and started researching and looking and finding and eventually came across the 5 primary skills and started realizing that those 5 primary skills, you can literally take that and apply them to any problem. And you'll find that you either need some kind of creativity, some kind of critical thinking, some social intelligence, some self-management or attention management to solve that problem, right? And when you know those 5 primary skills, you immediately upskilled yourself to the next degree. So, and that's where it came about. It's, it's a passion to, and part of what my business is, we provide solutions for people and people solutions. And that's what we do. So if that's what I do, I need to know, like, what does that require and how do I do that most effectively to help people thrive so that when they're thriving, challenges that are thrown in their direction become a lot easier.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kevin. Do remember to put your questions either into the Q&A or just put them into the chat. I've got the chat open and I've got the Q&A open, so feel free to hit us with some questions. Next question's already in. What about people that don't see themselves as hashtags creative, or the people who don't see themselves as socially skilled, or even people who see themselves as a slow decision maker? Or what are we going to do about people who kind of don't see themselves as the type of person that has the skills you mentioned?
Well, there's no polite way to say this. You got to do something about it. It's plain and simple. You got to do something about it. So, a lot of people are not just generally creative, right? So so the thing is, and Bob, you also know this, you don't know what you don't know until you know, right? So to sit on that side and go, well, I'm not creative. This is not something I do. This doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not talking about it coming naturally to you. I'm talking about what are the actual requirements for you to be a future employee of the world. And essentially what the world needs is these 5 primary skills, right? So when it comes to creativity, what's beautiful about these skills, these are practiced, rehearsed behavioral skills. These are things that you can actually learn. You can learn how to be creative. You can learn how to critically think. You can learn social intelligence. You can learn attention management. You can learn all of this. So, kind of taking a back foot and say, well, this is not what I naturally do. That's okay. It's cool. It's not that you naturally do it. Will you need it in the future? Will you need it as a primary skill for your next job? Potentially. So taking action towards that and learning how to hone that skill is going to serve you in the long run, rather than just going, well, it's not naturally something I would do.
Cool. Great answer. Thank you, Kevin. Tough question, I know. Next question is in. Of the 5 skills, is there a top 1?
No, I don't think there is. I don't think there is a top 1. What I do know is that if I had to sort of combine these as one area of focus, it would be curiosity. If you're curious enough about being creative, you'll find some creativity. If you're curious enough about critical thinking, you'll start critically thinking about things. And that's curiosity is beautiful because there's no judgment in curiosity. It's a part of human behavior that comes with judgment. It comes with interest, and purely based on can you be curious about social intelligence? Am I a social intelligent being? Do I have the ability to be socially intelligent? Can I be curious about how do I take an hour to finish a presentation and that person takes like 20 minutes? what are they doing? Like, how do they hone that skill? Like, what are they doing? And suddenly when I find myself in a position of curiosity, I'm not judging it. I'm not blaming it. I'm not finding fault with it. I'm simply curious. And the moment you step into curiosity, all of these skills become a wonderful area to play in. And I think, so I wouldn't say there's a number one primary skill, but to really help hone these skills, just become curious about them.
It's fascinating you to pick that word. Just one of the words that in sales training and sales coaching with groups is a word I often put out there. If you are humbly curious with other people, it's amazing what they will tell you. And you just, if you have that insatiable, humble curiosity with ourselves, we would spark our development. I totally get that. If we have that humble, insatiable curiosity with others and with life, we're gonna make some stuff happen. That's a really great answer. I'm inspired by that. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Another tough question. So you've got a challenging audience today.
Love it.
In this world of AI, how can I become more human? Surely I need to be more about relationships than about being connected.
How can I, there's two parts to that question. So just read the first part.
How can I be more human? In this world of AI, how can I be more human?
Become more present. So being more human is being more present. So what we tend to find is we're disconnected, or we dumb ourselves down by being on social media, having glasses of wine, or always finding something to do, right? Becoming more human is being able to sit with yourself and finding the bliss of having a cup of tea. That is becoming more human, because that requires you to not have to be doing something to take up this time, right? Being human is being, it's in the world, in the word itself is being human. You're being a human. So if you can take more time to be rather than do, because we find ourselves as doing beings, not being beings, that's how you become more human. Like a simple thing that I would suggest, and it sounds a little bit silly, but I challenge you to go and do it, is go and sit for 20 minutes today and listen to the sound of the wind. Right there, you are being more human. Because who listens to the sound of the wind? Like, why the hell would I do that? What that will do is it will really hone in onto really paying attention to, wow, like maybe I'm like missing life to such a degree because I'm constantly online, I'm constantly in a meeting, I'm constantly making food, I'm constantly doing something and not just being. That's how you are more human. And what's the second part of that question, Bob?
Surely I have to be more in relationships these days than simply being connected.
Absolutely. So one of the conversations Bob and I had just before connected was we are connected. Everyone's connected online, and I mean, my LinkedIn's got like 20,000 people on it, and I haven't met the 20,000 people, right? Like I haven't. What I've actively done as a practice on a monthly basis is I'll take 10 people that I think could be potential clients and or people that I find interesting, people I want to hear from, people I want to relate to, people who I want in my network, and I'd say to them, hey, I see that we've been connected for some time now. I would love to just chat to you and see what it is you do and tell you more about what I do. And literally, it's a practice that I do, and I literally get online and I speak to random people all around the world, and I'm fascinated and I learn, right? And why? Because I'm coming from a position of curiosity. So based on that, and taking an action to connect with someone, and literally connecting with them and saying, hey, Bob, how are you doing? Who are you? Tell me more about you. because this is me and this is how I am. And guys, that's how Bob and I got to where we're having these conversations today. That's what we did. We got on LinkedIn, chatted to each other, and he was on my show, I was on his show, and Bob's your uncle.
Almost. It's fascinating. Another really important friend of mine, Thomas Power, has a saying about being open and random in the way we connect with people. So he talks about it being OCR. That if you're open to connections, random connections, there's an exponential growth that's possible. Whereas too many of us, I think, try and channel those connections through. And too many of us, you're right, Kevin, are satisfied just to have the number on LinkedIn and go, I've got 15,000 followers on Twitter or TikTok or 20,000 connections on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They're not relationships.
No.
It's the relationship that can make a huge difference. And I'm fascinated by your sit and listen to the wind. Bob Bodino, I spoke about earlier on in his other book, Two Chairs, which is about prayer life. He kind of challenges you to meditate, to listen in a prayer, or if you're not a person of faith, then you might be meditating and listening to the wind. If you can actually do that for more than 4 minutes, you're probably doing a good job.
Absolutely.
But to shut up and listen to yourself rather than talk at God or talk at the world or talk at the universe, whatever you believe, being in a place where you're listening and absorbing is huge.
Yeah.
We have another challenging question coming in.
Yeah.
Do you consider in your model there is a correlation between the activities of the right side of the brain and the activities of the left side of the brain? Often we hear that the right side does exploration and innovation and the left-hand side does the creative thinking. So, and there's lots of ways of dividing up the brain, but do you see a correlation between other research on what the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the brain does with what you've been thinking through and talking through?
Absolutely. I think that it's whole brain thinking. And I'm going to add to that, from a neuroscience perspective, what we know, neuroscience will teach you that not only, is there cross-pollination to starting to pay attention to these primary skills, what it also shows is we have more intelligences than just the brain, right? We have a heart intelligence and a gut intelligence, right? So as one of the assessors to the neuroscience for business leadership, what you learn is your vagus nerve travels all the way from your gut brain, all the way straight up through your heart into your brain, right? And most of your serotonin comes from your gut, right? So when you're feeling good, it's because you're looking after your gut. You'll find that when you, depending on what you're drinking and eating, you could really, find yourself quite depressed in the next couple of days if you don't look after what it is you're consuming. But I think it's broader than that. So I think, from a primary skills perspective, I think it does. Self-management requires a lot of discipline, right? And self-management requires a lot of structure, where creativity is really wanting you to dream, wanting you to put yourself in a position with doing stuff that's not usual or may not be your usual way of doing anything. But essentially, when you're honing those skills, you're starting to come from a full brain body connection space. And the more you do that, the more overlapping you have, the more holistically you are approaching your decision-making processes and how you show up for your life, for your career, for your community, and for what it is you're wanting to achieve in life.
Brilliant, thank you. Another question that's coming. Kevin, you mentioned earlier on that when we feel uncertain, we're not going to perform at our best. This uncertainty of the future, is that not going to affect our ability to develop into our best? I guess he's speaking to your fifth point about how do we motivate people to become better and move into the future of work. If we're making people feel uncertain because of the pace of change, I guess, are they actually going to buy into the development we're asking them to do?
So there's a strange answer to this, but when you get it, then you get it. But only when you get it, you'll get it. If you don't get it, you won't get it. Certainty in itself means I'm at ease with what is. I have safety and security, and I know I have certainty about things, right?
Yeah.
The flip side of that is what we do know is there's so much uncertainty in the world right now. So part of me, and psychologists call this radical acceptance, right? Part of your brain needs to go, what is the happening right now? And what we know that currently is quite specifically happening right now is that there is uncertainty, which means I am absolutely certain that there's uncertainty, which means that I also need to be adaptable. I need to be agile. I need to be quick thinking, quick on my feet. I need to have more than one solution. I need about 7.5. I need to prepare myself. I need to prep. I need to be ready so that when the uncertainty occurs, because I'm certain that there is uncertainty. And that certainty gives me an ability and a mechanism to always be aware and prepped and ready for the uncertainty that potentially could occur. And if it doesn't occur, great. Then we're ready and agile and we're ready to go. But when it's just uncertain and it's just uncertain and it's just uncertain, step back, radically accept that it is uncertain. And once you've accepted the reality of the uncertainty, you have certainty about the uncertainty.
The one constant we can rely on is there's always going to be change.
Yeah. So knowing that, you've already prepped yourself with going, okay, cool. Now I'm certain. That's certainty. We know that change is going to be there. It's inevitable. It's radically accepting that we're certain about the fact that there will be change.
Very good. Thank you. A question from me.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I came across a gentleman by the name of Ronald Woopris. And this was, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. He was talking about attention being a product, and attention would become literally a product. And it was quite interesting that you talked far more about attention management rather than time management or task management. Would you be able to, in these last minute or two, just open up attention management a little? Because somehow I got a feeling it's important.
So the fact that you call it attention is a product, right? So what has TikTok gone and done is they've minimized our attention span to about 30 seconds. And they've done it so well that as a product, they've put a platform together where we can lie in bed, and I'm guilty of this. So I'm very aware of how much time are you spending TikToking, because I need to know that product that they've created of 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, you can get lost in that product, and your attention, your managed attention in that product becomes completely skewed, and you don't become productive, right? Mm-hmm. So when I'm actually paying attention to the amount of attention I need to put slides together and put a conversation together, I know that, okay, cool, I need to do, this is going to be 45 minutes. I need to do 45 minutes, and then let's see. What I then do is use the Pomodoro technique, where you actually time yourself and you say, okay, cool, I put everything off, no devices, no nothing. No one's allowed to come into the office. No one, don't interrupt me. This is the red zone. I'm busy, and they know, and when I'm doing that and I'm managing my attention to get through this information, I get through it far quicker than when I'm kind of sitting here and going through reading it, and then I'm reading an email, and then I'm like, oh, let me quickly send this email because I forgot. And there's no managed attention on what it is you're doing. I don't look at my emails all day. I don't look at my phone all day. I don't look at, I have time where I look at my emails. I have time that I look at my phone. I have time that I watch my latest series, but I also have time that I allocate to get things done. And when I'm getting things done, I'm not doing anything else. I'm doing that. And that is managing your attention. And it's not you're not finishing your tasks. So it's not, you're literally focused attention is doing the thing you're busy with and nothing else, because that manages your attention.
Very good. That's great insight. Thank you. Earlier on, you mentioned access to a questionnaire or a tool. If you want to give us put that into the chat or show us the slide or something.
Quickly, yes. So the 6 human needs, guys, I'm going to put it in the chat quick. You can go and check it out. It is not a short questionnaire, so it's there for a reason, because we really want to get you to think about it. But if you click on that, it's in the chat box. If you click on that, you'll see it will give you a whole bunch of questions around what your 6 human needs are. And it asks you just a variety of different questions. And right at the end, you'll see it will say, okay, cool. According to the questions that you've answered. And if I were you, I wouldn't try and outwit the questions, just go through them. Like, what is your first immediate reaction? It's like, yes, okay, yes. And then just go through it. And as you get to the end of the questionnaire, you'll see this will be your actual top human need. And see how it resonates, because it's not a position for you to run your life by. It's the curiosity of, so love and connection. How is love and connection one of my highest needs? And it might be because you may feel quite disconnected from your family, or disconnected from your team, or disconnected from, or significance. How is significance such a highest need for me? I'm fine. I don't need significance. When you start really becoming curious about the need, you start asking and framing it from a different perspective. And when you do that, you'll come up with absolutely wonderful answers to why this becomes an important drive. And what's beautiful about it, I'm so passionate about the human needs. I know that growth is like my number one need. And if I'm not growing, then I feel like I'm dying. So, and like I mentioned to Bob earlier, that currently today I'm running with 4 different webinars, and I'm like, yeah, it's growth. I'm growing. And that feeds me. It inspires me. It motivates me. It gets me going. And it meets my needs. So go and check it out, guys. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for today. Bob, thank you so much for the opportunity.
We will send the link out, Kevin's link out in the email that follows tomorrow, with the link to recording. So everybody today will get it again, and anybody that's listening in, we will make sure it's in the email. Been fantastic to talk to you, Kevin. Next month, we have someone also following on from this, talking about the challenges with the future, because Tom Ziegler has come to talk about the fact that selling still remains human, even in these disruptive AI times. So how do we sell in these crazy disrupted AI times? Come back next month, 6th of April, and listen to Tom Ziegler. Kevin, a brilliant show. Thank you very much for your time. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye,
thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Have a great week. Ciao, ciao. Cool, guys. Thank you for joining me on the lives. And if you want to find out more about the human needs, you can TikTok me directly, or send a message. You can just comment on or send me a message. If you are watching on YouTube, please send me a chat or a comment there. You can also see it on leadershipbydesign.co. You can just get a hold of me there. Thank you for joining me, guys, and have a fantastic day. I'll chat to you soon.